Hello, hello. Thank you for having me here. It's nice to be doing this presentation on home ground. Last time I did this presentation, it was at the UN and then in Vienna, where there was 6,000 people, so it's a little bit of a nicer audience where I can actually see you all and talk to you all. They also only gave me 10 minutes. Today they've given me double that much time, which is good for me, maybe not so good for you, but let's hope it is good for you. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about a technology, but it's not about the technology, it's about the people. And it's very important we understand that. This technology is only there to make the lives better for the people in the cities which we're working with, and it's to be a tool to allow people to communicate. We communicate every day using our verbal language, and I've been in a lot of communications in English and Norwegian where I'm quite sure I understand what the other person's saying, they're quite sure they understand what they're talking about, and we realise afterwards we haven't got a clue. And this is about breaking that gap. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is complicated data. We're all very used to seeing complicated data, and we've all got this opinion that actually machines are far better at dealing with complicated data than humans. We are actually very good at dealing with complex data, but we need it in the right format. We don't want to read a big document of 1,000 pages, we don't want to go through and look at zeros and noughts, but if you can put something into graphics, you can understand it. Every day I drive my car to work. Normally I'm rushing, normally I've got 1,000 things going on, normally I've got 2 screaming children in the back. I'm not thinking about driving, but I still drive, and so far I haven't crashed. This is probably a stupid thing to say, but so far I haven't crashed. I'm half asleep, but I'm driving a car. I can drive a car and take in and process huge amounts of information in a very, very fast time and make decisions. I can make decisions on risk, and I can make decisions on trends. And I can do that because it's in a graphical format. So what we've got to do is take this complicated data, take this big data we're working with, and put it into a format that we as humans can work with, understand, and process very, very fast. This isn't new to us. We've actually got to this stage over 15 years of development. It's been something we've been doing in the offshore industry for a very long time, and for a long time, everybody told me that simulation should be a perfect copy of real life. And when I started to mention that we could put things into simulation which weren't there in real life, it was like I was creating the biggest sin in the simulation world ever. But the idea is that if you can augment, if you can overlay data into a world you're used to, you can understand that data in a very, very fast and effective way. So it's a very good way to put things into a background, put things into a way that we understand, and then overlay more information, and we can take that in automatically, nearly intuitively, without thinking it through. We deal every day with problems. That's what we're working with. We're working with whatever industry we're working with problems, and we're using all sorts of tools, and the point is, what we want to get to is a fact. Humans are actually very good at dealing with facts and making decisions when you've got a fact. If you're dealing with a gut feeling, it's quite difficult to make a decision, and you're very unsure of yourself, and if you make a decision and it goes wrong, then you're to blame. If you can say, I've based it on these facts, it's very transparent what I've based it on, then it makes things much, much easier. And simulation is a tool to allow us to take things from a problem, process it, take all the information in, and come out to facts. And then we've got those facts, we can just say, okay, from those 2 facts, we can make a step forward. And this is exactly what we've been doing in the offshore industry for a long time. We've been using this to evaluate risks, to make new solutions, to increase speed of innovation, and of course, to train people. But this is exactly the same in a simulator. However clever people think technology is, a simulator still doesn't know if it's simulating offshore, if it's simulating a city, or if it's simulating medical or whatever else. We're just simulating a tool. And in this case, we can look at a number of different tools. And as I said, we've been doing offshore for the last 15 years, and it's not such a big jump for us to go into another area. And this same technology can be used for all sorts of things. So you see I've mentioned cities here, but it can also be used for health, it can be used for finance, and it can be used for education.
For 15 years, we've delivered the world's most advanced offshore simulation solutions, but our exciting new journey to develop smart, sustainable cities has just begun. Humans understand data best in a visual format. Working with the UN, we created a digital twin of Ålesund, Norway, and augmented data with powerful 3D visualization tools. You can quickly interact with and interpret big data to identify trends, evaluate risk, test theories, and assess progress.
Simulation technology will be a game changer in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and Augmented City represents a unique possibility in this field.
As we upscale to other cities, join us, the UN and our partners, on a journey towards a smart and sustainable future.
Okay, so that was just a little taste of what we're starting to do. We're not by any means complete. We're starting to take this technology, and taking this technology from the offshore industry over to smart cities has put us in a stage where we're ahead of the game. We're ahead of everybody else, but it might only be 2 minutes. We've got to take that opportunity, and we've got to run with it as fast as we possibly can. We haven't solved it. We are in a lovely situation here where we're working with New Ålesund Commune, who is coming from England at the moment, or the UK at the moment, when you hear how politics is going on there with Brexit. To deal with New Ålesund is quite refreshing, I have to say. So to be able to make decisions to move things fast is a really exciting time. So that's a little bit of a taste. But what I want to do now is to go in a little bit more and tell you a little bit about details of what we're actually doing and how we're doing it. So we've been working with the United Nations. It's all based on the Sustainable Development Goals. And it's based on these KPIs that Carrie started to talk about. So you've got the Sustainable Development Goals, and they break down into these 3 different areas: the economic, the society, and the environment. And then these are then used through the tool, and this is, as Carrie's already shown, the tool for the KPIs, and we're looking at all of the 92 areas. Now this is a very pretty diagram. And you might actually be able to get some information from this. But this is actually looking at the city as a total. What we want to do with the simulation tool we're talking about, and where we see to be a huge innovation jump, is to break it down and not just look at it as a city where you're comparing one city to another, but be able to break that data down into different areas of the city, see trends, take in time factors, take in all of these other factors we haven't thought about before, to really use this as a tool to enable us to push technology forward, to push solutions forward, and to make the quality of life better for the people working in the city, and to make it possible for people to understand why decisions are being made. So what we've done is we've started, and as I said, it's just beginning. It's a prototype which we're working together with the UN to do this. So we've just started. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. So I'll take out emergency response time here. So this here, we're showing the fire station was where it says 111, 110, and then we're showing the time period for a fire truck to go to the different places. And that's through, so it's taking the time factor through the day. Now actually, you saw on that, it got green and it got a good result. But the point is, the KPIs don't take into time factor, and so they're doing that in an ideal situation, and they're not doing it when traffic is going through in peak hour traffic. One of the other ones we looked at here is noise, and we put this together with traffic just to show a few different things. So I'll show you this. Now that mountain you see in the background, you won't recognise that mountain because it doesn't exist. That's the sound from the airport. So we visualise sound as a form, as a shape, which people can understand. And that shows the sound of the airport. And then we're showing this ribbon here, which is showing the traffic. And around that, you can start to see the colours. Now, actually, when we want to look at sound pollution, your first instinct would be, if you're looking at sound pollution, let's look at where the real noise is being produced. And that would take you directly to the airport. Now the airport, we all know that there's going to be a huge level of sound around that, and then you don't have a large population directly around the airport. But in the city centre, the traffic, where the traffic is causing sound, and other activities are causing sound, that's much more interesting. So within a few seconds, you can break down information on different variables from the KPIs and start to focus on the things which are really useful, rather than jumping to the assumptions that you would assume straight away. Right, I'm going to show one more, I think. And this is solid waste collection. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later in in a case study, but this is where we just started to look at the routes that they were taking for the garbage collection and what was going on with the different garbage collection. But I'm not going to say too much about that now, because I want to talk about that a little bit later. So, you've seen the outside, and you've seen how we've been dealing with the individual KPIs, but we also want to break it down into the same levels, and we want to understand how these levels could be working in the different regions within Alderson. So the next thing we do is we take out those three centre parts, and we take it down to the levels of the districts within Alderson. And the reason we're limited to the districts of Alderson is because we're dealing with data protection here, so we don't want to go down to a level where we're getting information at a level which could be exposing anybody's personal data. So we take this, we look at these three different areas, and then we've taken these into the simulation, and this is the first time this has been shown, so we're starting now to be able to show exactly how we break down that information which is only ever been shown before as a total city level, down to district levels. So we're starting to look at the different areas that take this across the whole city. Now this will start us to be able to take some very quick decisions to say, okay, this area is better at this part, this area is better at this part, what can we learn from one area to the other and how we can move these things forward. So it's about tools enabling people to make decisions and about taking things forward. I'm going to finish off talking through a case study here. And in this case study, I want to explain a little bit about how this tool can work and how it can be of value. Now this case study is quite a random case study because it's based on the data we already had at this period. It also, I don't want you to get focused with the details of this case study. I want you to get focused with the ideas behind what could be achieved doing these sorts of solutions. So as you've seen, we've started off, and the whole point we start off with a visual representative of Alderson is that people understand visuals. So we can very quickly get that idea of what's going on with the visuals. And also, every bit of data, and this is something which is quite key, when we're taking in traffic data, we're taking in data from Google, and we've got that down to a really, really fine detail. When we're taking in, for example, air quality pollution, there's only 2 sensors in Alderson today. Now, to have a system where you can be using the level of detail that you've got with traffic data against something with only 2 points, you need a very advanced solution to be able to do that. And that advanced solution has always been there for us. It's just the idea of putting it into a visual format that we can understand in the graphics world, and it doesn't matter the fidelity of the data, it can still give you a good feedback, and then we can build upon that fidelity as we work through the process. So here, this is the response time as I've already shown you, and this is showing you how things can go through. But what's actually interesting here is looking at how this response time changes as the traffic changes through Alderson. Now, Alderson, having lived in other cities, everybody complains about the traffic in Alderson, but I can tell you quite clearly, move somewhere else and you'll love it when you move back. Here you see, and in worst case scenario, in the peak traffic, you've got a situation where that 10 minutes response time out to the end of Hesse there is taking 30 minutes. Now, if you've got a wooden house and the fire isn't under control quite quickly, 30 minutes, your house is gone. Now that's, hopefully the people are out of it, and it is a crisis, but then there's some other things I'm also showing you there. I'm showing you Hesse School. Imagine a fire in a school with all the school kids and how they get out of the school. Now I was talking to the fire brigade about this, and they said, Joel, you're missing the point. The whole point is we're taking time into this. Most of the kids are not in school when there's peak rush hour traffic. So the school wasn't as a big issue as I first thought it was going to be, and this is why these tools are so good. But there is also a nursing home. Now, not only are the people there 24 hours a day, but getting them out of a building is not an easy task. So you've really got to think through this. So this is just showing a problem, and I could have picked any of 100 problems, but this was the problem we had some data for quite quickly. So what we want to do is look at how we could use a tool to really think out of the box, to think parallel thinking of how we could solve this, rather than the standard thinking of, we've got a traffic problem, let's either make everybody take a bus, or let's put a load more roads in. So we thought, what changes could we do and what effect would that have? So one of the first things we did is we looked at what would happen if we changed opening times of schools and daycare. Daycare in our simulations, and it's still too early to say, but it seems to have a really big effect. And it makes sense. Most people are working flexi time and they're quite happy to work a little bit longer rather than sit in traffic for half an hour. But they have to leave because of the Barnahugger is about to close. The nursery is about to close. So you can change that. So this is one little aspect. The next thing we looked at was parking. And the first thing we did with parking is we started to look at parking. We started to say, okay, let's make it so nobody can park on the streets in the middle of rush hour, and we'll make more roads available for two-way traffic. We saw that had effect. But I think what was more interesting is when we said, okay, what would happen is during rush hour period, we quadrupled the price of parking in town. Now, this probably would work much better in Ålesund than lots of other places in the world. And you guys all know why that is, I don't need to say. But the whole point is you discourage people from driving into town and adding to your load during the rush hour period. Now, this obviously has knock-on effects to shops and everything else, so you've got to look at the good and the bad with everything you're discussing, but it's about having an open discussion and being able to show that data in an open way. One of the final things we looked at, and we managed to get some nice data from NTNU on this, is we were looking, because they've got some nice studies going on with this, we were looking at the garbage collection. And I have to say I was quite shocked that some of the garbage collection planned routes take them directly through rush hour traffic. And all of us look at that now and think, what madness. But it's never been thought through, because of why would it be? It's not a standard thing to put together, but it's this whole idea of going out from this silo thinking into an area where you start to understand everything together. You put all of this data together, and then you can see the original and you can see the simulated here, and you look at the difference. We haven't changed anything. We haven't changed the road structure, and we haven't actually got the traffic down. The traffic is exactly the same. All we've done is spread it out over time. Now, this works in Ålesund. It wouldn't work in London or Mexico City, but it works in Ålesund. But you see here, just with some small changes, we've made a really big effect. We also thought about it, and we said, okay, let's go back and let's talk to those people at the fire station and see their process and what they're doing. Now, we looked at the time it was taking, and we've got 3 years of results. They're sitting there with 3 years of results. Everybody talks to me about big data the whole time. And they're so proud of all the big data they have. And then I ask them what they're going to use this big data for, and they're like, oh, we don't know. We've got lots of it, though. We're filling up hard drives daily with it. And I'm like, well, let's start to use it. But the fire brigade has this data for the last 3 years of all the responses they've been pulled out to. And we looked at the first part of it. We looked at how long it takes them to get into their fire trucks. Now, that is super impressive. I don't even think before I had kids I could get in a car that quick. The next thing we looked at is the traffic, which we studied quite closely. But the other thing we looked at is how long it takes them when they get to the building to get their bearings and understand what's going on. And that can take time. You don't want to be rushing into a burning building if it's safe, it's past a point of recovery, and there's nobody inside it anyway. So understanding what the situation is very important for them. Now, the council is sitting with building data for nearly every house. It knows what year it was built, it knows what fire exit it should have been built to, let's hope it is built to those, but it also knows how many people should be living in that house. They may not be there, they may be there, but all of that information is key. If you could be giving that information to the fire brigade as they were driving out to the building, you could probably save them another 5-10 minutes in their job. Now, this is one random case study where we've picked up stuff, but I'm not saying that I've got solutions here, and I'm not even trying to say that this tool in itself will give you the solutions. It should be a tool to allow people to discuss, to take the solutions forward. Ålesund changes quite dramatically in the summertime. And that's not just the snow going, and the nicer weather, and it's not just this week, hopefully. But we have a lot of cruise boats coming in. The population of Ålesund changes hugely. And here in the background, what we're showing you is data from mobile phones. And we're showing you how people move through the city centre this was a day when there was three cruise boats in, and actually the different colours are showing you the different countries that the SIM cards are registered to. I can't promise you the people are from that country, but they should be if their SIM cards are registered to that country. Now this can be used for all sorts of things, but straight away I looked at this and I was like, why are so many people coming off their cruise boats and walking down to Skarbervik? What's going on in Skarbervik which makes it so interesting for all these cruise boat people? And I'm sure the shops would be quite interested to know why everybody's going down there. If I was investing in putting a shop selling tourist stuff, I would be putting it in Skarbervik Road at this moment. So it shows you a little bit of this data. We're sitting in the possibilities of this data. Again, this data, and you'll see one of the columns here has got a UN flag on it, and that means it's countries which we're not allowed to say because it's less than 10 people from that country. So already when we've been given this information, from Telenor, it's already been made anonymous, and it's already been taken to a scale where we're not getting to a point where we can find out who an individual is. So it's a tool which wants us to look at things at a high level to have an understanding rather than wanting to know exactly what time somebody comes home from work and if somebody else is having an affair with somebody else or whatever else. The other thing with what we're working with is I've said quite clearly from day one, we don't want to own any data. The minute we own data as my company, we make ourselves impartial. If we sit there and we say we will display information, we will work with everybody to help them display information. We can work with the United Nations, and we can work with the industry, and we can work with academia, and we can work with the commune, and we can display this data to give solutions, and hopefully we should not be in any way twisting the information. We're just displaying it, and it needs to be as transparent as possible. Everybody always, when they come into the simulator, the first thing they ask me is how realistic it is, how good it is. And the truth is, shit in, shit out. So it's about having information and having the good information in and being transparent about that information you're putting in. So that's really where I want to conclude about this case study and talking about this, and I hope it's given you a bit of an idea of the possibilities. And as I said, this is a prototype. This is something we're developing. We've working with the United Nations, and I think my next slide, which some of you, if you've read the Summers posting this morning, you'll see this because it's been announced. But we are really pretty proud, I have to say, not just proud from a company, but proud for Ålesund and proud for a region, that a technology developed here, which has been funded by the oil industry, we can now pay back that technology, and it's going to be used as the global simulation partner for the United Nations. So that is a pretty big thing, not just for us as a company, but as I said, as a region. As Carrie mentioned, I first met her on Friday night in August when I'd already had a phone call from my wife to say I should be home because dinner was on the table, and somebody knocked on my door and said, could they have a demo of the simulator? I was like, really now? Could you not have timed this better? And then she was like, well, yeah, I do work for the United Nations. I was like, oh, you might get a tour then. And then she was like, well, I'm General Secretary. I was like, okay, you can get a tour. And then after we'd had the tour, she said, can we sit down and have a coffee and have a chat? I was like, come on, everybody knows by 5 o'clock in Norway, everybody goes home. Anyway, we had a chat, and then she said to me, would I come down and do a presentation in Vienna? And I was like, yeah, and she goes, and I thought, oh, I've got an idea. I've got a simulation conference coming up, and I need a speaker. I'll do you a deal. You come and speak at my conference, and I'll come and speak at your conference. She accepted that deal, very naively. And I went down and spoke at her conference. She came up and spoke at this conference, at my simulation conference, and then straight after that she was dragged off to the commune, and that's where things started to happen. This was in September. We're already at this stage now. Things are moving very, very fast. OSC is a small company. We're not going to achieve this alone. The window is very tight. We need to partner. We need to work together. I hear all the time about the philosophy of Sunnmøre, where it is compete where we have to and work together if we can. And here is an example of needing to work together. If we're to push this technology, and it's not just Sunnmøre, we need to do this as Norway. We need to put ourselves on the map globally and take this technology forward. So I'm going to finish off with that, and I'm going to say thank you very much. I'm excited by this conference. This conference is growing from last year. I think it's going to be a really exciting stage for us, and I think for Norway to be pushing forward the sustainability goals and having innovation and all these things connected together within a conference is a really, really exciting idea, and I very much hope this to be more and more international as we go forward. So thank you very much for today, and I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for a very fascinating lecture. Anyone who thought it was a bit frightening as well? Being tracked with your cell phone? Okay. Stable lives being lived in all this. That's good. Joe, I brought my new friend from the local bank. I always try to make friends with the bankers where I go. And here she is, Cecilie Bystad from the Sparebanken Møre. We'll talk about your role in this project in a minute. Joel, I just want to ask you, because there are some keywords in this whole smart city project. One of them are involving the citizens. The other word is ownership. How can this tool, your tool, be used to give the citizens ownership to the project?
Transparency. It's all about transparency. The whole point of this is that it takes something which can be very, very complicated and make it very simple. So you can use this to simplify things and make it so people can understand something. Another bit of data which I haven't shown today is from those 2 sensors that we've got in town looking at air quality pollution. Suddenly when we take that in and we look at a day when there's 3 cruise ships in, you can suddenly see the effect it has to air quality pollution. People who are worried about traffic worry about 3 cruise boats. That's something that people as citizens aren't seeing, and therefore there is no need and no issue with making a reaction on that. If we can make things transparent and show these things to everybody, we can share it. But OSC as a company will never be able to achieve that alone. We need to be working together with the councils and the community to open up these ideas.
Yeah, fine, but transparency in itself doesn't necessarily lead to ownership and involvement, does it?
No, and that's why we need to bring people in, and we need to be looking at a number of spin-off tools and a number of things which work with this. Everybody today is used to the idea of paying for parking with their mobile phone. There is so much options of using technology to integrate into these things to bring ownership back to the citizens and to make people feel like they're really involving with these things.
Yeah, good. So at least now we know what we should do for a living when the oil area has ended. We should all simulate. Perhaps. Anyhow, you told that somebody knocked your door. I know that the local bank received a phone call all by a sudden, one fine day, and there you were in the middle of the whole project. What has been the local bank's role in this? I guess you've spent some money.
Yes, we have. We received a phone call, as you said, and was invited to a presentation of this project, and we were impressed by the goals that they had planned, and very impressed by Ny-Ålesund kommune and how they went about it, how innovative they are doing this. And we wanted that to use this technology that has been used for the offshore industry, and that this can be used to a totally different purpose, is something that this region is known for. The industry takes what they are good at and thinks how they can use it in other ways. And that is one of the things that fascinated us and motivated us and wanted us to go into this project. And we were delighted to do so, and we were so fortunate that we got to join them to Geneva and see both Ny-Ålesund tell Geneva and the UN about this project and see the response they got. And it's very motivating, and I'm very proud to be a part of this. So I'm very excited about what this will be for the future, for the region, and I think it will be very big.
Good.